Welcome to a special episode of There's Something Here, Coffee Shop Edition, or Coffee Talk, as we like to say. When you think of coffee, you think of that first smell of Folgers in the morning. You think of waking up to it, watching the morning news. You think of maybe waking up while you're driving your car, drinking the coffee. But you also think about community. You think about sitting around a coffee shop, talking with your friends and family, maybe meeting the mayor, maybe meeting a council member, maybe just talking about what life is like in your city or town and what you will want life to be like in your city or town. Coffee centers us, coffee grounds us, pardon the pun. Coffee's a big part of our life. And today on this, There's Something Here, we're going to talk about coffee shops across the country. Well, across the state, in fact, actually. So join us. There's Something Here. Well, I got to say, Ben, that is wonderful music.
It's a goodie.
Who is our artist today?
Let's see. Uh-oh. You put me on the spot. I wasn't ready. Should have been ready. Y'all keep going. I'll come back to... Actually, I'm sorry. That was Sunday Coffee by Rebecca Marday.
Man, that nails it. Kevin.
We got to talk about your Folgers. Like, please tell me you're not starting the day with Folgers. You've got to have an upgrade than that, more of an upgrade
Well,
than
it's funny you ask because we recently switched to West Rock in the office.
Yes. All right.
But I grew up here for 17 years. We had nothing but Folgers, and so that's what I drank. Actually, I drink hot tea in the morning, but my second cup of hot thing is Folgers.
I feel like Folgers is cool for the office, but at home, you got to step up your game just a bit.
Well, I'd like to say it's good enough for my dad, apparently, so it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
But I love Folgers. I thought I'd get a comment out of the Folgers.
You had some good puns in that. But I think that kind of goes into coffee in general. You know, like Folgers used to be like just the standard. I feel like people didn't really talk about coffee that much. It was just a thing that happened. And then now, fast forward to today, it's like Folgers.
Yeah.
So coffee's the thing that you need, but coffee, like I mentioned, is part of really who we are as a culture in a lot of ways. And Kevin, when you think of a coffee shop, what are you thinking of?
Well, I mean, more than anything, it's where I do a lot of my work personally. I do a lot of writing because I love, especially after the pandemic, I like being around people. I like getting out of the house. I like doing my work and my writing and my idea generating in coffee shops because I like that energy. And more than anything, it's a word that's going to keep popping up on today's episode is that feeling of community.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Ben, what about you?
What do I think of when I think of coffee? Sorry, I missed the question.
Yeah, coffee shops. Like, what do you think?
I love it. It's something that me and my wife, it's a big part of what we do when we travel. We love going to new coffee shops. We love seeing different communities and seeing what they have. So I've visited quite a few across the state, and I love it. Like you said before, it's really how you can get a good, quick taste of the community, what they're about, and what just the kind of people that are there by going to the coffee shop. It's a good window into that community.
Yes, and for like $6, you get a cup of coffee, whatever you want for $6, maybe $7 if you get something really fancy, and then you get that window into the soul of a city. That's a really good way to put that. I like that a lot. And so a lot of what we do when we do these episodes and we do the travels, we almost always, I think every single time we've gone to a coffee shop because to find that window in the soul. And we're going to run through some of our favorites, not ranking anybody. We're just talking about some coffee shops that meant a lot to us and why they meant something to us. So Kevin, I'm going to start local here. I'm going to start in Little Rock. I'm going to start with Community Bakery.
Yeah, Community Bakery, a true melting pot of a business. You're going to see all walks of life walk into community, and that's what I love about it most. They've got great coffee that they're sourcing from a variety of roasters, many of them local. I know they use Guillermo's coffee and a few others as well. So, you walk into Community Bakery. It's a historic building right on South Main Street. If you're listening to this, there's probably a good chance that you've been in there, you've had a meeting in there, you've walked in and got one of their iced cookies and a cup of coffee. It's been around forever, decades. One of the oldest places we have in this area, and it's a real. It is what its name is. It's Community Bakery. It's a real focus on community.
Well, I like to think of it as really the heart of the South on Main District. And quick plug for you and the Cornbread Festival that you just wrapped up co-chairing and organizing. Great event is on Main Street, and being the heart of Soma means you're the heart of a real heart of Little Rock in a way, because Soma is so important to the city and really the state. And we did our podcast there. We started there with Virgil Miller at Community Bakery to get a sense of Soma. So congratulations on the Cornbread Festival. It was amazing.
Thank you.
And congratulations on capturing that community of Soma.
Yeah, thanks. It's a labor of love, but it's one of our best food events in this area, and I'm really proud to be associated with it. And it was a big success again this year.
It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Zara and I both did. Now, we started There's Something Here in Cave City. And our dear friend Jonas Anderson, he's got a show coming up November 23rd at the Rev Room.
Yes, the Rev Room.
So November 23rd, come down for Kingsdown music.
Kingsdown.
It is a great show.
Bring your earplugs.
Bring your earplugs because they rock out. But it's a great show. But when we first went to Cave City, I took you to Drifter's Coffee, and again, I'm not ranking anybody, but for us, it still is a very special place. There's something here, and to us as friends.
What a feeling inside that place. It's small. It's not big. There's not a lot of places to sit, but it's so cozy and welcoming. And again, it has that community feel. You can sit out in like the main dining area, which only seats a couple tables, and there's that little nook in the back. They have a drive-through. There's going to usually be a kind of a young adult working the counter. I think in the first time we went, it was the man's daughter who
John Bethel.
Yeah, we just had a nice meeting with him. He's like, oh, if you go to Drifters, my daughter's gonna be working the counter. So you get that feel right off the bat, like small town vibe. And Drifters is I feel like we did talk about community from the get go, but when we were on the road, I feel like Drifters really started it all for us, because that's where our first coffee shop experience, the two of us, when we were kicking off this podcast, and it really set the tone of like, hey, when we go to towns, this is where we need to start our visit is in these coffee houses.
Now, Ben, you've been to Drifters.
I have, yeah. I've got a quick story about Drifters, because I went based off y'all's recommendation, which is great, because I was up there a few weeks later covering the Watermelon Festival, and I went into Drifters because you guys talked about it. And one of the things that me and my wife do when we go around and we travel is we've decided we're going to start collecting coffee mugs, right? And so when you do that, you can't just say you're going to collect all coffee mugs, because that's chaos. You're going to have all kinds of stuff. So we decided, maybe we'll do like the diner style coffee mugs, and that'll kind of narrow it down and keep us organized a little bit more. Long story short, I'm in Drifters Coffee, and they have the diner style mugs. I'm like, yes, I got to have one, but they don't have any more for sale. The only ones they have are the ones that they give to patrons. And so I told them the story real quick, and of course, they were like, well, they just pulled one off the shelf and handed it to me. Look at that.
Is that it?
Coffee.
That's it right
the
there.
one.
Yep.
Hang on, let me adjust my...
That's a good mug right there.
It's a solid
I love that
Look.
style.
What
There
Ben
it is.
fails to tell you is this is a scam he's been running for a while now, okay, to get free mugs
That's what I do. It's,
from these mom and pops, these small
I
town
swindle
mom
them
and
out of their
Well,
coffee cups.
that's the good mug to get, 'cause that's one of my favorite mugs right there. Is that's diner style, Waffle House style.
Well, speaking of mugs, let's talk about that for a second. Let's get off track just a bit. Do you have a favorite mug in your arsenal?
Yes, I'll tell you. In fact, Matt Bell, a good friend of ours from years past. I pulled out this mug for very special people. He got this mug, and it is a diner style mug that we got together in Milwaukee. It was Milwaukee with a Native American chief's head on it, and it says Milwaukee, the good land.
Yeah.
And that is my favorite mug.
I'm a little like Ben in the fact that, like, when I travel, one of the things I like to bring home is an ornament, a magnet, and a mug. And the mug is really cherished because I don't just buy any mug from any place. It's got to it has to have a really good association, and it's got to be a type of mug that I desire. I love diner style mugs. My favorite mug, I've had it for probably like 7 or 8 years now, if not more, is from Becky's Diner in Portland, Maine. I love Portland, Maine. It's a great food town. There's a lot of like upscale eateries, but Becky's is your very typical New England type diner. And what I love about Becky's is you can walk in there at 9 o'clock in the morning and order a lobster roll, and they don't. That's just normal. They do great grilled muffins, but my Becky's Diner, Portland, Maine mug is so cherished. If you asked me to bring it in here, I wouldn't because I don't want it to leave in the house.
Yeah,
I can't
fair.
take a chance.
Yeah.
I cannot
It's
take
high
that
risk.
chance. So Ben, I'm going to send you the picture, and you're going to do your magic, and
Yeah.
you're going to pop it like right next to
Here,
my
hold your
head.
hand up, and I'll
Right
put it
here?
right there in your little hand.
There-
Turn it over.
oh, like this.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, there we go.
Ba-king.
Bing, ding.
By the way, I don't put the Milwaukee mug in the dishwasher. It is hand wash only.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I take it.
High
Yeah.
praise.
Yeah.
That is
And I do.
that's
if you-
serious.
and I promise you, if you come over for coffee, you're getting that mug. That is only for
Really?
special people. I do not
Wow.
drink out of it when somebody's
That's
special
very
there.
telling.
That's why give it to Matt Bell, give it to you.
Yeah.
It is for special people. I don't drink out of it if somebody's there with me that it means something to me.
See,
to
I'm
have-
just the opposite. No one gets to touch it. What does that say about
No
me?
one gets your
nothing.
butt.
It's nothing.
What does that say
Yeah.
about me?
Now, what coffee do you give? What mug do you give your enemies, John?
Oh, I just throw it in their face.
There you go.
right on the picture. Here's
With a
some
paper-
Folgers.
with a paper cup.
Actually, I do Maxwell House for them.
Yeah.
There you
They don't
go.
get Folgers. Ben, what about you? Your favorite mug? The Drifters?
Favorite mug? I like Drifters. Another one that I brought with me because I came prepared and did my homework is I've got this one here. It's from Pietro Nolita in New York. They have this coffee house is all pink. Everything in it is pink, and it has a wordy dirt on the back, so I can't show you. But it's pink as all get out. But it's not that. Everything in it is in the coffee house is pink, and so all their stuff is pink. And it's kind of what started like, oh, we should start collecting these diner style mugs. So that's this one.
Do you ever run out of room for your
Yes.
mugs?
Oh,
and then you
absolutely.
have
Yeah.
to make the decision to get rid of a
Yes.
mug?
Yes.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I've been faced with that.
I don't want to think about that. It's
I
gonna
just-
make anxiety right now.
I just create worse spaces for the mugs.
No, I get.
Yeah.
I bump them. Some of them get bumped.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm talking ending up in the Goodwill pile. Like it
happens.
It just they've had their time, and if it just happens to slide off the counter by accident and breaks,
Yeah.
accidents happen. Okay.
That's actually the one I give to the enemies. They're already broken one. I just
Yes.
pour 'em coffee over, like here, just shove it toward them on the counter. All right.
Ah,
Well,
all right.
okay. Pine Bluff.
Pine Bluff.
Indigo
we're,
Blue.
We're moving on.
Marianne Lee owns Indigo Blue. Indigo Blue is right there on Barricue Street, about 2 or 3 blocks from the courthouse, within easy walking distance of all things downtown Pine Bluff. I went there the other day, and it's always great to see her. It's a solid cup of coffee, and really what I love about it is when you go in there, you get a sense of history and African American history, Pine Bluff history. It's a very, very powerful imagery when you walk in there and see all she has. Just a little library in the back. It is a really cool place in downtown Pine Bluff.
Yeah, it's a historical building. It's huge, and the walls are adorned with a lot of these pictures, historical pictures. And again, you kind of touched on it, but the one thing that separates Indigo Blue from just about any other coffee house you're going to walk into is there's a legitimate bookstore in the back that you can spend some time. And they make a good cup of coffee. They make a good breakfast and lunch. It's the food is solid. I think our only slight knock on Indigo Blue is we want a little music.
Yeah.
We want a little background music. I think that's very important for a coffee house. And sometimes it's quite quiet in there. And I'm someone has complained about places that are far too loud. I think my only slight constructive criticism with Indigo Blue is some nice light background coffee house music, much like the music we had to start this episode.
We'll send Ben over there. Ben can help craft it.
Yeah.
There it is.
See?
There, yeah.
Just there. That's
Just that.
perfect.
all you
Yeah.
need.
And you and I have commented on that a couple times.
Right.
And but again, like a really beautiful spot and
Mhm.
big. I mean, they can hold large crowds if they wanted to. And I think both of us really share how like that feeling of like we know how important a coffee house is, especially in a town like Pine Bluff that
Mhm.
needs these small businesses in the downtown area to really bring up things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So shifting gears actually to me is a very interesting place in Arkansas. It's River Rose Coffee. And I have now been to 2 River Rose locations. And so River Rose is based, I believe, in Wynn, maybe.
Mhm.
But then it also has a Forest City location and a Camden location. And it's a little bit of a regional chain. And it's just it's a box. I mean, I think the one in Forest City is the rail car boxes. I think they do ice cream there as well. Again, solid cup of coffee. You sit outside, and that was the sitting outside in Camden, because that's where we stopped in Camden, was River Rose Coffee, or one of the places. And we got that perfect spot on the patio.
We lucked out because we really knew nothing about River Rose other than like we had the most amazing day in Camden. We had a lot to process. We had seen a lot up until that point, and we were just looking for a place again to just sit down and just assess what had just taken place. And unfortunately for us, when we walked in, like there's no seating inside. which was we were like a little thrown by that. And then it was still pretty sunny outside, so we're like, what are we gonna do here? And then we had one table that was in the shade, and it was like it was meant for us at that time, and it really allowed us to sit outside, enjoy the nice day, and talk about what we had just seen for the last 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, I remember that being a lot to process. And then we were sitting in the shade, and I forgot who was inside doing I didn't
Yeah.
catch her name, but she came out and she said, "I've got an umbrella to help with the sun." And we both looked at her, and she looked at us, and we all like, "Yeah, this is perfect. We're
Yeah.
in the shade. It's perfect." And what's interesting about River Rose Coffee, and I want to know more about them, and we're really rooting for them, of course, is because they are a regional outfit, and they're Arkansas based, and it's nice to see them branching out, because now all of a sudden this local shop, which I presume they were local at some point or still are, they're now creating this business that's stretching across a little bit of Arkansas, and I'm really excited for them.
I wish we had a little more time to follow up, because it must be an interesting story, because there are two locations, Wynn and I think actually Lake City, and so those are relatively close to each other. And then you've got Camden.
Mhm.
So I'm curious how that came about, how that came to be, as far as like you've got these two locations that are fairly close to each other, and oh, by the way, there's one in South Arkansas. So that must be an interesting story, but they have a really good concept. I thought the coffee was excellent.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that you touched upon that little nugget, because that's really what makes the difference in these coffee houses. You're
Mhm.
not gonna More than likely, you're not going to get that out of a chain place, and a true national chain place. But that little act of like coming outside, checking on us, do you need some more shade? That is the separator, okay, to
Right.
me anyway. And it's those little things that really, really mean a lot in the end. And it's so nice to see it, especially in a small town like Camden, where they are really fighting for those dollars, that competition. And it was nice to see it.
So moving on to Fort Smith, and I went back to Fort Smith Coffee Company a couple 3 weeks ago, and I loved it. The only thing is, and this is not a knock on Fort Smith Coffee Company, I'm actually getting to a positive aspect. It was really loud because they're doing construction on top of whatever is the big building they have there, or they're part of a bigger building. Really, it's not entirely Fort Smith Coffee Company. It's very loud, but they had this great outdoor space, and while it was loud, I sat there thinking, I wish it wasn't so loud, but I embraced it because I knew that meant that they were progressing, or this area was progressing. And of all the places we went to, Forest City Coffee Company, like I said, is part of a larger conglomerate, so to speak, of like different things going on. There's a little bit of an art scene going on in the back. I think Arkansas Fort Smith has a little place there. I think maybe some workforce service. It's a lot going on there in a very positive way. And the coffee was great. The cookie I had was great. And the vibe in that place, very sunny, very airy. Both inside and outside, I really love Fort Smith Coffee Company.
And I think Fort Smith Coffee Company is very reflective of Fort Smith itself, and the fact that like we mostly do small towns for this podcast. Fort Smith has been the one outlier where it's a city, and there are multiple locations within Fort Smith of Fort Smith Coffee Company. There's one, I believe, in the U.S. Marshals Museum. They're building a new one.
No way.
Yeah, and there's another one. The one that you're referring to is in the Bakery District, which is a large setup, and there's a lot,
Yes.
like you said, there's a lot going on around it. But it's one of the things I want to touch on is like, and there will be a few more that we talk about today, but they roast their own beans. And that is something that's you won't find very much of in small towns, like coffee houses that are going to roast their own
Mhm.
beans. And I think that's something that you get when you start up in the population. And Fort Smith does their own, they roast their own beans. And the thing that stood out, food wise, we didn't eat a lot there, but I remember grabbing a slice of banana bread that really just was fantastic. And it's a good place to hang out. They've got these swinging like lounge chairs that you can chill out in, and there's different spaces. Like you said, it's a big space, but what a nice setup they have, and I kind of want to go to their other locations when we get back to Fort Smith.
Absolutely. Now, Ben, you've been to Fort Smith Coffee Company too, I think.
Yeah, I think I went to the one of the maybe their main location, but it wasn't a part of a larger building. It was a freestanding building, and it was in kind of what looked like an old gas station.
Yeah,
kind of feel.
yeah.
Oh,
That might be. Is
cool.
that their original one, Kevin?
Believe,
I don't know.
Yeah, I believe that's their original location.
And that one
Yeah.
is really cool.
Oh,
It's
man.
got a cool
Yeah.
setup.
I've actually been in that one. Now it's been several years ago, but yeah, that's a cool setup as well. But yeah, they're big business, and I imagine they're trying to ramp up their wholesale business online. That's the next phase, for a lot of these big coffee houses that want to take that next step. And yeah, they got a lot going on at Fort Smith Coffee Company, and all good things, but just a little different than the other places that we've been talking about and who we will talk about in this podcast.
I'm going to go off script here a little bit. Not that we have a script, but a little bit of diversion here because I look at, Guillermo's in Little Rock does it. They have a coffee shop and a roaster. Fort Smith Coffee Company has it. And then when we're in Camden at the what was the Native Dog?
Yeah.
Native Dog Brewery has the brewery and we're seeing that too, where you brew your beer and you have a place to drink the beer and maybe have some food. I see that more with breweries and with coffee companies.
Yeah.
Or am I missing it?
No, you're seeing that because a brewery is if you're not brewing your own beers, you're basically like a flying saucer, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to have a million different options, but they're not brewing their own beer. But when people go to breweries, they want to have the beer that is being made right there by the brewery. They don't want to just go and see a bunch of taps from various places.
Right.
So I think that is a little bit of a difference. And again, like a coffee house is a real community.
Mm-hmm.
You can get away with not roasting your own beans because people just want a good cup of coffee. They want to sit there a lot of times and work, clog the place up, and have meetings. That's not really what a brewery is about.
True. Okay, that's fair.
And so I think that's what you're going to see the big difference.
But you like a coffee shop that brews its own stuff or roasts its own beans.
Yeah, I don't. Of course, the smell is wonderful.
The smell.
Yeah, and if you happen to catch them, particularly when they're actually roasting, it's cool. But I don't look down upon places that don't either.
Of course.
Like some of these places we just touched upon, like Drifters, like they're not roasting their own beans. I don't think they are, and it's a great place. And if you can source your beans from quality spots, especially other spots that are local, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I think too, roasting your own beans at a scale that size, it's expensive. A lot of these, it's a lot of stuff. You got to have these commercial. I don't know what the pricing is on it, but it's a lot. And one of these, we may touch on it later, but another major coffee shop that has grown into that brewing and grown into that is Onyx Coffee Lab up in Northwest Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a huge setup in downtown Rogers where they roast all their own stuff. And Kevin, like you're talking about with that smell, it just kind of permeates through downtown Rogers when they're roasting that coffee. But we can talk more about them a little bit later. But they're one of those that's kind of at the top of that Arkansas market because they source their stuff all over the state.
Right. They're huge. They're Onyx.
Now, I will say, our next stop is in Cabot and Bruyayas, and Cabot is not a huge town, and Bruyayas is roasting their own beans, so that
interesting.
It happens. And
yeah.
I've had a couple good experiences at Bruyayas. They make a lot of their food from scratch, and again, kind of like what we were talking about, it was a nice, when we spent the day in Cabot a couple months ago, we started our journey that day at Bruyayas, and it just is a good spot to get your bearings, to talk about things, any meeting, not just our meeting. And again, you get that real good community feel. People are coming in and out, and it's a central location, even though we've talked about Cabot and their lack of a true downtown. But I believe they're going to be moving pretty soon.
And that's what's interesting about the Bruyayas is because we talked to Cabot, or talked to the mayor, talked to Alicia about Cabot, how they need a downtown. And to hear Bruyayas is moving into downtown tells me that Cabot is growing downtown in a positive way, because you really have to have, maybe not have to have, but it's really nice to have a great coffee shop in downtown. And once Bruyayas, which is a solid coffee shop, comes into downtown, now all of a sudden I'm going to Cabot to have coffee downtown.
Yeah.
And then when I'm downtown, I'm going to see the Pocket Park. I want to see the little stage. I want to see the Pocket Park with the children's jungle gym. It really, anchor may not be the right word, but it gets close to anchoring downtown.
That's what I was going to interrupt you with, was the word anchor. These are anchors for these towns, and they're important because they bring people together, various people from all walks of life, and these spots, And the mom and pops, the non-chain spots and non-national chain spots are so critical to the development of these small towns, to the soul of these small towns. It gives these places character. We are constantly talking about it on the podcast. Look what we talked about last time with Camden, how important these mom and pop places are, and it's going to be hard to top the coffee houses in that respect.
Right. Well, Cabot was. I'm looking forward to going to Bruyaya's when they move downtown. Now, talking about an up and coming coffee shop, I like to think, and really well, she's not an up and comer. She's established herself, but this is Lacey's Coffee Shop. It's Lacey's Coffee Shop called Milltown Coffee in Sheridan. And go back to the Sheridan episode. I still remember walking in and just immediately feeling that sense of her knowing you and this sort of already to get family friendly atmosphere. And I saw the community leaders gathered there, and all sorts of stuff going on in that shop. And I'm still blown away by her and what she's trying to build in Sheridan.
Yeah, unique setup. She's got the bakery, the Sugar Bakery, also in there. When you walk through the door, the bakery's on the right. Milltown Coffee Company is on the left. She is sourcing her beans from Guillermo's, or not sourcing, but she's getting her beans from Guillermo's. So she is supporting another local coffee shop. She's not roasting her own beans. And she has combined that with really good baked goods. And what is my favorite part about the whole shebang are these sandwiches that they make. They make fresh bread, or they're getting fresh bread locally, and it makes a huge, huge difference because you want items that are going to stick in people's heads. And I'm telling you, that turkey pepper jack, I think sandwich it's called, I just adore it. And they do a great job with it. And again, yeah, you walk in and you're seeing all these groups of people meeting, and that community feel in there is really strong. And I'm really happy for Lacey, and I think that's the type of business you're going to see grow and grow.
Yeah, I think I agree. I completely agree. And I'm looking forward again to seeing her grow and Sheridan grow in large part around that coffee or Milltown Coffee.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, I think we need a coffee break. So we're going to step off, refill our coffee mugs, and come right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. We've gotten our coffee fix, and we've talked a lot about coffee, but I want to go back to Milltown real quick because she has a lot of food options there as well, both on the savory and the sweet side. So Ben actually asked this question. I want to ask it to us again. What's your favorite, I think you put it coffee dipper. What food do you associate or want next to your cup of coffee whenever you have the coffee?
Well, because I'm not a child, I don't have any type of food I like to. I'm not 5 years old.
You don't dip it, okay?
I don't
like
dip.
a
What do you
dipper?
have to have there
Gotta
with
need
you?
a
I just wanted to
dipper.
get my shot in on Ben, okay? But the truth is, I don't dip jack squat in my coffee. Give me coffee
Well,
black.
Jack would be upset if you did.
Yeah, he would. But no, I'm not 5 years old. I don't dip donuts. I don't dip Oreo cookies or whatever the heck y'all are doing. But I'm very, very curious
Wow.
to hear Ben's answer now
Yeah.
that I've thrown him under the bus.
Okay. But before you go, what food do you associate with having next to your cup of coffee? What do you balance it out?
Now that is a good question.
Okay, do you coffee and then bite? What do you do?
I love the cinnamon sugar. You can give me a cinnamon roll. I'll be happy all day with my morning cup of coffee. An oatmeal raisin cookie would be fantastic.
Oh yeah,
Just anything sweet to kind of like a mild sweetness.
mild sweetness. I
yeah.
like it. All right,
Fair.
Ben, what are you
Wow,
dipping in
I
your
caught a lot
coffee?
of crossfire there. I wasn't expecting that, but hey, well, I'm gonna recover. And I think I'm along the lines of that. Not necessarily if I'm dipping it. If it is a dipper, then I'm looking for like a little scone situation. It can't,
Okay.
it can't be too overly powered, too sweet, but kind of a neutral little balancer. If things soak up a little bit of that coffee, that's great.
That's cool. Ben
Now-
wants to ruin some scones. Go ahead.
I dig it. I dig it.
This isn't just like I'm not just throwing it straight in there, Kevin.
Let me.
A soaker.
So I'm
yeah,
gonna.
it's a little soaker.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
shout out
Just
to
a little-
Camden
just a
again on
quick
this
taste.
one. What was the donut shop? Sonny's.
Sweeties.
Sweeties.
Yeah.
If you take that back, and I'm gonna back up Ben here. You take that blueberry
Somebody
cake
help me.
donut. Take that blueberry cake donut. Split that thing into a third. Dip it into some coffee. That I'm telling you is a
Yeah.
solid
I'm
bite.
sure
Give me
it
it.
would be fine, but I would just rather be an adult about it, and eat the old-fashioned donut, blueberry donut, and then take a sip of my delicious coffee.
Okay, here's the next question.
So what's the difference though?
I don't want a soggy donut. And I don't want little crumbs in my coffee.
Oh, that's the best part.
No, that's the worst
Oh,
part.
I love
That is
crumb-
the worst
no,
part.
No, it's a agree to disagree. You know what?
Yeah.
Let's cut this short.
Yeah.
This has clearly gone off the rails.
Yeah.
Now, back real quick question. Dive deeper.
Okay.
If you have the donut or the scone or whatever it is, Kevin's, I guess he just, nails because he's so tough. Are you eating all of the food and then drinking the coffee, or are you alternating? And how long can you alternate before one takes over the other?
I'll let Ben feel this because I'm out of this part of it.
I mean, I could alternate my bites here. If I think it works out well. If it's like a coffee cake, if it's a cake situation, I like for them both to finish them both at the same time. So
Okay.
I'm doing a little bite here,
That's
a
the
little bite
goal?
there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I end up finishing the sweet
rationing
thing.
it out.
Okay, I end up eating the sweet thing first, and I have just a bunch of coffee. But now I'm going to just crumble up the entire donut into the coffee just to mess with Kevin.
An offer.
Yeah.
An offering.
Yeah, that's your cup of coffee next time you're at my house.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to this is a really special place to me, and it's one of those places that I was very excited to bring you to as my friend and co-host of There's Something Here, and it is She Brews in Crosset. It is just a wonderful place to me. I knew Crystal Marshall, the mayor of Crosset, before that, but that's really where she and I talk a lot when I go down there. And again, I brought you there, and I was very proud to do it.
Yeah, it was the first memory of She Brews for me that I really enjoy, and it gave me a glimpse of how mayors in these small towns kind of do the work that they do, and how prominent working in a coffee shop is for the mayors. And when I say working, they're seeing the folk in the town, and they're able to talk, and it's just a very easy environment to approach a mayor and just to talk and about things that are going on. And I think that was my first glimpse of it. And because we got to, you give us this great perspective or the ability to be able to sit with a mayor and talk about what's going on, and to do that inside She Brews in that coffee house is really, it's fun to do, and you get a really unique perspective.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I remember you telling me that when we left there, Crosset, the first time, you saying that you saw the mayor in her element, and I said, yeah, that is a great embodiment of what it's like to be a mayor in these small towns, or really in any town for that matter. But again, She Brews, it's a nice open space, plenty of seating, good coffee. They have the baked goods as well. I just really, every time I go to Crosset, I go to obviously Bistro, Beach Street Bistro, and then She Brews. And no trip to Crosset is complete without going to She Brews. That's my rule.
I agree with you, and I think that's gonna become the standard when we go back to these towns, is these coffee houses that we're talking about. We're gonna be going back to them. It's not one and done. I mean, this is where we're gonna start our journey again when we go back to them. But yeah, She Brews is a cool place, and it was, like I said, really the start of seeing mayors in their element. And then as we progressed through all this podcast, we've gone to different towns, we again see it. We see it over and over again. We heard Mayor Natton in Sheridan, talk about how on Saturday mornings he bounces around to different coffee shops, and that's a big part of what he does. And then, I don't want to ruin Jacob's well when we talk about that, but we had a great meeting with the mayor there, and you can tell that's not the first time she's done something like that.
Well, before we get to Jacob's Well, because that's where we'll end this one, because it's that one meant a lot to us, and will always, I think. But I want to go to Leslie for Cove Creek Emporium and Dottie Mays, who owns Cove Creek Emporium. Every coffee shop has some embodiment of the city or town, but no coffee shop that I remember in our travels fully embody the city or town in such a tangible and literal way than Cove Creek Emporium. When you walk in there, it is Leslie, and it is a whittling capital of America back in the 50s. They have the article there and a picture there. They have all sorts of stuff from all over Leslie, and it just felt like Leslie.
Yeah, and was it a coffee house first and an emporium second, or vice versa? You don't really know, but it is a place just to reside and hang out and talk with folks in the community. And I think that was also a stop on one of our favorite moments of all this podcast stuff that we've been doing, is like that walk down Main Street in Leslie, where it was just one thing after the next, and in the middle of it all was Cove Creek, and it allowed us to kind of sit down for a few minutes and go, man, this is really going well. We're seeing things we haven't seen before, and there is a lot here in Leslie, specifically on Main Street, and you know. Cove Creek really just embodied that feeling of like, man, there's so many good things within a close proximity, and that's what a small town should be about.
And on the way there, we got to Serenity Bakery, which the actual bakery stop. I only mention them because one, it's baked goods. They also serve coffee or as well. But I think an update from Mayor Yeager, who, by the way, Mayor Yeager, I remember this from the episode and from our travels. He knew every single person everywhere we went, and Dottie was one of them. I think he said he used to wash dishes for her restaurant, which was across the street. And we get to Serenity, and again, there was another great story of Mayor Yeager in that building. I think Serenity has bought another building, a bigger building, and they're expanding. I think that's what's happening. So kudos to Serenity Bakery, and I wish the best for them and Cove Creek Emporium and Leslie, because, man, Leslie, foodie town with flair. And
Yeah.
they live up to it.
Boy, we had a great day, and I really legitimately look forward to going back there and doing another episode soon.
Well, finish up our last stop, and it is literally our last stop in our history of the podcast, and it is Jacob's Well. And I'm just going to steal it from you, Kevin. I walked in there, and the absolute first word that came in my mind was community.
Yeah, and it was kind of an afterthought to go there. We were coming back from Magnolia. It was Saturday morning, and we were a little bit on the fence, I think, because we were tired and ready to get back home. But then Mayor in Camden there met us, and she was really excited to sit down and talk with us some more. We had spent the previous day with her, and I think you and I both were a little shocked by what we saw at Jacob's Well. It's a big place. It's very spread out. It's open, and yeah, that community feeling. There's people in the back painting. There's other groups meeting. They're cooking. The coffee's good, and it's a place that's a little on the outskirts of the center of town, and the thing, and we've talked about this, and we talked about in the previous episode, the thing that really for me. That I enjoyed was the owner, Megan, and how passionate and heartfelt she was about what she does and how she's willing to take chances. She's not just settling in and just saying, this is the way things are done and I'm not changing. I love when owners like that are flexible and they're willing to take on new ideas and try things. And some of them might not be successful, but I just... the things that I see with business owners sometimes is they're so set in their ways. And it was just very refreshing to listen to Megan talk to us for 15, 20 minutes about all the things that she's trying out and trying to make Jacob's Well even better.
So more to your point, when you're talking about things that she's willing to try, we heard a couple of them. It wasn't things to try to make more money it was things to grow the community. I think one of them was, do you want to have a Christmas Santa dress-alike contest or something? And she's like, yeah, sure. I give it a shot. Whatever it is that people will come here and be part of a community, I'm willing to try. And I loved that aspect of Megan.
Man, excellent point. Excellent point. Because so many times owners are so wrapped up in doing things to generate the almighty dollar. And I get it. It's a business.
Of course.
But there are some things you have to do to build your brand, so to speak, or your image, or expressing your true passion for community. And a lot of times they're not going to make a lot of money. She was doing a pie contest outside. I doubt that made much money for the business. It probably didn't bring in a lot of people the first time. It was the first one they've ever done. But you're setting a tone, and that pie contest next year, if they do it, it's going to be a little bigger. It's going to be a little better. And within 5 or 6 years, they're going to be probably known for their pie contest, which is going to generate more business. But that takes time. And I don't think a lot of business owners understand that sometimes. And she does. And it's really great to see it.
The other thing about Megan and I associate this with my wife, Zara, who you know really well. Zara is a fantastic baker. She's an even better cook. I mean, she's an amazingly talented woman. And when I talk to her about baking and cooking, she's just like, I love feeding people. That's just a thing that she loves. And Megan said the same thing. She loves feeding people. And because when you feed people, you don't just fill their stomachs up, you fill their soul up. And I could just sense that from Megan. She said it, and I
Yeah.
love that aspect of this. It's about the soul of people, and it's the best way to get somebody's soul sometimes is through their stomach.
Yeah, it's. I was so impressed with her, and again, that overriding feeling of community, and what better place than the last spot that we were together with at Jacob's Well.
Well, it's a bakery too, and so I like to think of Jacob's Well. When I think of Jacob's Well, I think it's the perfect mixture of community, warmth, and the smell of bread.
You can't beat the smell of bread. I mean, that's pretty darn good.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, last thing we're going to talk about. I thought about this when I was in a coffee shop. That I won't spoil it yet because this is a little bit of a quiz. But I sat in a coffee shop recently, and I thought, man, I really wish Ben and Kevin were here. I wish we could record a podcast right here because this place feels like it's just a good place to sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and just talk about the things we love to talk about. So, with that in mind, I'm going to ask you, is there a place in Arkansas, a coffee shop you've been to, that you can see yourself thinking, I really wish the other two guys were here and we can record a podcast and just talk about the things we love to talk about? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, and you can give it a little moment to think about it. I love Petty Jean Coffee House. My friend Stephanie runs it, and it's a warm environment. It's in an A-frame building. I think either literally right outside Petty Jean State Park or right inside, but it's right there. And there's even like an Airbnb attached to it, so you can stay in there. I don't know if she's still doing that, but it's got a lot of character. And again, she's a friend. I like supporting friends. And I like bringing other friends to support friends. And I just think that's really cool. And they've got a great vibe in there. It's not big, and if on a nice day, you can sit out on the porch. It's a really cool, unique spot for Arkansas. And yeah, that would be my choice.
All right. Ben?
Man, you gave me time to think. So now I've got like 3 or 4 popped into my head as I was sitting here. I guess, off the top, one of the ones we didn't get to talk about that I'm probably find myself going to the most here in Little Rock is Fidel & Co. They've got a couple of locations. They've got a downtown one. They've got one in the East Village. It's a small spot too, but it's a cool space to hang out, and they've been doing really well. I mean, if you can find a seat, every time I go in there, it's packed out. And my others that I've mentioned in my head is, I talked about them earlier, but Onyx Coffee Lab up in Rogers. If you haven't been to their HQ, their headquarters up there, it is incredible. That building is the 1907. They rehabbed it. It is truly an anchor in that downtown Rogers space. And those are the two that I think I would check out.
So I was going to Monticello for a legislative roundtable, and I've been stopping at every time I go. I stop at a coffee shop, and I just looked on Yelp or Google Maps or whatever, and I came across Monticello Coffee Company, and it is in an old Pizza Hut. And I walk in, and I promise you both, as soon as I walked in, I thought, man, I really wish Ben and Kevin were here. Because if you can imagine how you can possibly deck out a Pizza Hut to the nth degree, the best way you can to make it a coffee shop, they did it. There were different places you could sit with kind of like the same kind of vibe, but like different nuances to the vibe. They had hanging plants. They're selling my favorite hot sauce, Hoff sauce. The hot sauce is called Hoff sauce, by the way. Yeah. But it was just great coffee, great service. It just had this really great atmosphere and plenty of room for a podcast. So mine is Monticello Coffee Company.
You had me at Old Pizza Hut. You had me at Old Pizza Hut.
You had me at Hoff sauce.
I love Hoff sauce. And we're laughing because I went on a 20-minute 20-minute dissertation about Hoff sauce and why I love it. And I was told not to talk about it on the podcast. Yet here I am.
No,
He worked it in.
Tirade's accurate.
Well, as always, Ben, Kevin, the Mighty Rib, thank you all for joining us together. We're all here together at the Arkansas Municipal League, I'll add. And so a great episode. I really appreciate talking with you all about coffee as I drink my second cup of coffee. So for everybody listening, thank you for joining us. Please visit any number, probably all of these coffee shops across Arkansas. We promise you there's something here. Take care, everybody. God bless.